Welcome to the solemn, numinous occasion that is A Night in the Lonesome October by Roger Zelazny. I am a watchdog. My name is Snuff. I live with my master Jack outside of London now. I like Soho very much at night, with its smelly fogs and dark streets. It is silent then, and we go for long walks. Jack is under a curse from long ago, and must do much of his work at night to keep worse things from happening. I keep watch while he is about it. If someone comes, I howl. I fetch things for Jack on occasion. His wand, his big knife with the old writing on the sides. I always know just when he needs them because it is my job to watch and to know. I like being a watchdog better than what I was before he summoned me and gave me this job. So right here, and this is in the introduction on page 1 and 2, we know so much about this book, and personally reading this, I was wild for more. And obviously, I love Roger Zelazny. I've said this many times. My favourite Roger Zelazny is whichever one I happen to be reading, but this was his last book. Now, I know some people are already saying Lords of Light. This was the last book published in 1993, which he wrote completely by himself. Lord of Light was completed by someone else. This was designed around October, this book, and around the classic literature of spooky season. It is a phenomenal book. I love it dearly. Let's go to October the 2nd. The cat Grey Milk came slinking around Pussyfoot, peering in our windows. Ordinarily, I've little against cats. I can take them or leave them. But Grey Milk belongs to Crazy Jill, who lives over the hill in towards town, and Grey Milk was spying for her mistress, of course. I growled to let her know she had been spotted. "About your watching early, faithful Snuff," she hissed. "About your spying early," I replied, grey. We have our tasks. We do. And so it has begun. And here we have this marvelous illustration, which I would add on here if I had any editing capacity whatsoever. The illustrations in this book are by Garn Wilson, and they are amazing. They may fool some people into thinking that it is a kid's book because of the way he illustrates, but far from it. Far, far from it. The illustration acts along with that little bit of text to introduce a secondary character and a main player in this book. Onward to page 17. I addressed the squirrel through a hedge. "Are you in the game?" It scurried to the man's nearer shoulder and peered. "Who asks?" it chattered. "Call me Snuff," I answered. "Call me Cheetah," it replied. "Yes, I suppose we are. Last minute thing. Rush, rush." "Opener or closer?" Impolite! Impolite to ask! You know that. Just thought I'd try. You could be novices." And here we have another amazing Garn Wilson illustration of Cheetah, the squirrel, on the shoulder of his human. And his human, by the way, is called Owen, and he's a druid, as you can see from the sickle. But this illustration, if you haven't already seen that, tells you something really important about the structure of this book. This book, the main characters are all the animals, starting with Snuff, who is Jack's watchdog. Then we have Grey, who we have already been introduced to. Her mistress is Crazy Jill. And this story is about things that humans are doing, but entirely from the animal's perspective. We do occasionally see Jack as a human, as a narrator, having a conversation with Snuff. But aside from Jack, we get minimal human participation. They're there and they're important, but they're not us. They're not our world. They're not really part of what's happening. And this gives this book something truly unique, because I don't think that I know of any other book where the animals, friends or protagonists or antagonists or enemies, are the main characters in the way that this book is. You can talk to me about Watership Down, and you can talk to me about other anthropomorphic books like that, and they're doing something important, and they do have animals as their main protagonists, but here it is something quite different. It is seeing humans from an animal's perspective in a way that, yeah, like I say, I've never really encountered it before. So let's move on to October the 7th, which is page 31. What did I want to give you from October? Ah, yes. So October the 7th, it's worth mentioning. The chapters. We have the introduction, from which I read you a bit, A Night in the Lonesome October, but all the other chapters are just simply the date. The date is the important bit, because this whole story is about October and the powers rising as all of October shifts Snuff and Jack and the rest of the cast towards that final 31st of October experience. The way that the tension rises in this book is quite unique. Many authors and many books are capable of slowly rising tension, but the way it's done here, for me, again, as unique. On October the 7th, we were out again last night in pursuit of more ingredients for the great work. It was very foggy and there were many patrolmen about. This did not stop us, but it made things more difficult. The master's blade flashed, the woman screamed, and there was a rending of garments. As we crossed the bridge, Jack unrolled the strip of cloth and regarded it. "Very good, it is green," he remarked. Why his list of materials required the edge of a green cloak worn by a red-headed lady on this date at midnight and removed while still on her person, I am uncertain. Magical rotas sometimes strike me as instructions for lunatic scavenger hunts. Nevertheless, Jack was happy, so I was too. Yes, there is so much about magical systems, whether they're in role-playing games or in actual fantasy books or anywhere. It seems like a magical, insane scavenger hunt. A scrap of green cloth off a lady's cloak collected at midnight on this date. And Roger Zelazny, who at this point had spent his life in the fantasy and science fiction writing genre and knowing so many of the authors. I think this one was nominated for Nebula? Oh, nominated for Hugo. Nominated for something. This small, ironic passage highlights something that all of us who have read a lot of magical systems and a lot of fantasy books have giggled at under our breath sooner or later. It's like, ah ha ha, this is just insane. Yes, it is. And the way Roger Zelazny said it is best. Now, I don't have the original version. I think I've got the first copy of the paperbacks sold in Australia. But I believe that in the original, the Garn Wilson illustrations are at the beginning of every chapter, like they are here on the 7th of October, though not throughout this book. And here we have yet another main participant, Bubo the Rat, being introduced by Garn Wilson. Let's move on to page 36. With midnight chimes, speech comes to me. I rose and stretched, waiting for them to cease. Jack, having roused himself especially for the occasion, watched me with a mixture of amusement and interest. "Busy day, Snuff?" he asked. "We'd a visitor while you napped." "The rat Bubo," I said, "companion to the good doctor." And this is another part of this book. We know Snuff as an intelligent interlocutor, and we know the other animals as that as well. We also know that Snuff wasn't always a dog, so we've got something very unique there. And here, page 36, is where we find out how he communicates with Jack. Something to do with the spell that binds him to this place and to being a dog, allows him to speak intelligently, converse with Jack at midnight. And this is a plot factor. It's never truly explained if this extends to the other animals or not. We assume that it might in some cases, but it's an important part of the way Zelazny builds this plot, which he does through these dribs and drabs, but it feels like every word is perfectly chosen to build that tension. Oh yes, let's move on to this. But it is a true mystery, because we as readers are not told anything. There's no info dumping in this book. You learn it in dribs and drabs. And what do you need in any great mystery? You need a detective, or maybe even the great detective. Like I said, this book is a tribute to so many different sources, and that is one of them. As a watchdog, I could appreciate the mode of total attentiveness he assumed. It was not a normal human attitude. It was as if his entire being were concentrated in the moment, sensitive to every scrap of intelligence our encounter furnished. Snuff, Jack said later. Remember that man. And he did. And this character, I think we can assume that Roger Zelazny loved Sir Conan Doyle and Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes. This character features quite a bit. It's one of the most common human characters, aside perhaps from Jack. Okay, so here we are on October the 17th, and once again we get this beautiful illustration, and it is actually on the title page. This one doesn't include any characters, but it is reminiscent of the mad scavenger hunt. And at this point we've realized that the dying of the moon is significant in many ways which we only slightly understand. And by now we also understand that the whole story, the whole book, all the encounters, all the experiences are leading up to the 31st, which is when we still don't know exactly what it is, but we know something is happening. We know there's this great game occurring. Now, on page 127, we have reached the point where Snuff and Gray have become friends, and their interactions and their conversation and their figuring out the things about the game and the encounters that they need to know, that's a large part of building the plot. So our main two characters, if you will, our main two narrators. And while they recognize that they may be adversaries from early on and they're cautious around each other, the way their relationship developed is quite delightful. So well, big pause that I should edit out, but I'm not going to. We continued to the south and a bit to the west as I told her the things I'd learned. The air grew moist as we went and the sky dark as a blot in that particular area about which heaven's artillery flickered and boomed. That being, so you want to peer in the good doctor's windows again? In a word, yes. Cats aren't real fond of getting wet, she observed after the soft weather got harder. Dogs aren't crazy about it either, I said. Then, whoever wins, it'll still rain. And I'm not going to read any more from this book because I honestly think that I could go page by page through this book, enjoying every single bit of it. And from now on, it begets seriously spoilery. And it's funny that I should say that, because I have been reading this book since 1993, on average once a year, sometimes more often. It is a comfort read, it is a joy. I get as much pleasure from it this year as I did from it last year. And I intend to keep on reading this book for as long as I keep on reading. Like I said earlier, Zelazny allegedly thought this was one of his best books. I think in many regards it is, and it is unique to the way he wrote. So if you are desperately trying to read Zelazny and you're trying to start with things like Jack of Shadows and you can't get the structure and the dated elements of it don't mesh with you and you can't quite zing with the way he interpreted mythology in, for example, This Immortal, A Night in the Lonesome October is an incredibly contemporary book. Like I said, his last book that he wrote on his own. It is spectacular. It is beautiful. Anyone who loves classic fiction will enjoy it, I believe. Even if you have never previously succeeded in making friends with the Roger Zelazny, I would say if you like fiction or any of the classic spooky books, give this one a go. Again, I've got this, not the original copy, but I've got this beautiful wraparound cover in which so many of our protagonists feature. And there we have our two main protagonists, Snuff and Grey Milk. The cover illustration is by Mike Posen. Would I adore it quite this much if this wasn't one of my favourite books? If it wasn't Roger Zelazny? I think I probably would. So If I do that video for Richard about favourite colours, this might well be on it. Okay, how this is read. By aficionados of Roger Zelazny and this book, which this book has, by the way, has spawned a lot of other things. It has spawned role-playing games as well, which I haven't played. And aficionados will read it every year in October. And what they will do is they will open it up and they will read one chapter at a time for each day of October. I have never successfully done that. I know that I've never been able to. Once I start reading this book, I can't stop. A couple of times I haven't stopped till 1 a.m. It is completely and utterly addictive. But maybe next year, maybe 2026 will be the year when I can finally read one bit at a time. If anyone would be interested next October in doing a read-along for A Night on the Lonesome October, day by day, as it is read by so many around the world, let me know. In the dedication page, I think we've got something essentially very poignant. This is to Mary Shelley, Edgar Allan Poe, Bram Stoker, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, H.P. Lovecraft, Ray Bradbury, Robert Bloch, Albert Payson Terhune, and the makers of a lot of old movies. Thanks. It is a touching, I think, tribute by Roger Zelazny to the books and the authors that had given him pleasure throughout his life. And this is the most amazing epitaph, I suppose, both to his pleasure in life and to this book. Now, I hope you have enjoyed this video so far. And up to now, I have, I hope, titillated, but not overexposed and certainly not spoiled anything. If you have enjoyed this and you have not yet read this book, then you're missing out, obviously. I would recommend getting it and reading it without reading anything online, because anything online will spoiler it. I knew nothing about this book when I picked it up, and that first experience of reading along, almost gulping it down, desperate to know what happens next, with no real idea of what's happening, is great. So, if you're still watching and you've got no idea what this book is, go away now, because everything I say from now on might be a bit spoilery. Let's start with the fact that we don't confuse this with Night in the Lonesome October by Richard Lehman. There's another book out there. Roger Zelazny is the one you're looking for. Go look for it. Go find it in this copy or the original edition. The first edition hardcover had an amazing illustration on it, though I don't believe that was a Mike Poston illustration. I think... who did do that one? I'm not sure. It's a almost photorealistic image in which the actual human protagonists are present, with the animal protagonist as a side effect. I can see a lot of what they were doing there. It would probably intrigue people more, but I think this is my favourite cover. Now, published in 1993, it was near the end of his life, and Roger Zelazny died in 95, so this wasn't the last writing that he did, but it was the last full book that he had written that was published. Each of the chapters represents a night in the month of October, and a lot of people will tell you that it's a bit like journal entries. I don't feel like it's journal entries. I don't get that epistolary style from it at all. I just happen to think that the chapters are labelled with numbers, that's all. Everywhere online claims that it is heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft, and I cannot argue with that. I did not know that when I first read this book, and I didn't really know that until internet became a big part of my life and Wikipedia, and Goodreads appeared in it. But having had that pointed out, it's obvious. I think that the first time I read it, when it was slowly uncovered, was the best absolute way to uncover it. Because the title, by the way, straight from Edgar Allan Poe's poem Ulalume, and he's one of the people that Zelazny thanks in the dedication page. There is one point in A Night from Lonesome October, while most of it's narrated in the what would be today London, but would have been then the outskirts, the rural part outside London. There is this strange dream sequence where the narration takes us through the world that was described by Lovecraft in the dream quest of unknown Kadath. Now, I had not read that Lovecraft when I first read this book. It was fascinating but slightly confusing. If you're still watching, which you shouldn't be if you haven't read this book yet, probably are, some of you, and you love Lovecraft, this particular perspective of that dream sequence is really quite unique, and I think it's great. It feels like enjoying a map that you've read so many times that you know it off by heart. Now here's the big spoiler. In the story we eventually discover, but not until right near the end, till around about here, when the great detective has figured it out for himself, that once every few decades, when the moon is full on the night of Halloween, which is called a blue moon and is very rare, that is your second moon of the month, the fabric of reality thins and doors may be opened between this world and the realm of the great old ones as per Lovecraft. On those nights, when those conditions are right, certain men and women will gather in that place where that doorway has become possible, to either block the opening and keep the world as it is, or open the gate and summon the old gods through, which probably when I was 19 I would have thought that was a great idea, but I don't know. I don't think I want the Cthulhu gods romping around in the world, having read more of them. So that is the central premise of the book, and that is the mad scavenger hunt for bits of green cloak and bones from boneyards and all the rest of it. And this would always be a great book. Whoever got first conceived of this and wrote it is going to make this into a great book. But Roger Zelazny's lifetime of experience of writing amazing novels brings it from great to exponentially great. And the fact that he does it through animal protagonists rather than human ones makes this eerie and beyond spooky and quite utterly addictive. This is one of my favourite books. This is one of the 5 that I would grab from a burning house. This is one of the 5 I would take to me to a desert island, knowing that I'd never get any more in my lifetime. So thank you for listening to this totally fangirl review of A Night in the Lonesome October by Roger Zelazny, and this particular edition with its amazing illustrations by Garn Wilson. Have a great November ahead of us. Bye.